Knowing something doesn't automatically make it easy. Simple and easy are most definitely not the same thing. If you've ever wondered why awareness hasn't fixed everything and felt ashamed because of it, this conversation is for you. Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you. Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman. This week I want to have a very honest, very transparent conversation. Last week we talked about managing social energy, and if I'm completely honest and transparent, I knew my limits and I still overextended myself. And I want to acknowledge that the holiday season can be a challenge for all of us, and it can definitely amplify some pressure for us highly sensitive women because we feel like we are being pulled in a bunch of different directions, and we want to be there for our families and our friends and our colleagues and all of those things. And so I want to talk about how even though I knew what to do, and I know what works really well for me as far as my schedule and all of that goes, sometimes it's still not easy to do that. If you are in that same position at times where intellectually you know what to do and how to do, and you can answer all of the questions when asked, and yet you find yourself still struggling to put it into practice at times, this episode is most definitely for you. And I want to remind you that it is not failure. This is what it just looks like to be a human, to be a highly sensitive woman, and just what it looks like trying to implement change. Last week when I looked at my schedule, I was very overwhelmed. I had some things scheduled in the evening every single day after my workday was finished. And for me, that is very overwhelming, and I feel overextended. And I also found myself feeling some pressure coming from a few different directions. And I knew my limits. I knew the signs of being overextended, and I pushed past them because, knowing is very simple. And yet implementation is not easy. And the awareness of what I need and what is happening doesn't erase the patterns of my nervous system that have been there for decades, and the kind of conditioning that we have become accustomed to throughout our lives, or like our emotional habits. And that's okay, because what we're doing is a very slow and very gradual process. And so I just want to be really honest with you about it and allow you to have some compassion for yourself if you find yourself in a very similar situation. Because if you find yourself saying yes when you really wanted to say no, or overbooking because you're trying to squeeze things in and trying to be everything to everyone, if you find yourself ignoring those body signals that are coming up, that is most definitely what was happening for me. And I was abandoning myself in multiple areas. And what was happening is I was kind of irritable, was very fatigued. There was some resentment that was coming up. There was also a lot of guilt and shame for knowing better and not doing what I know works for me, But there was also some guilt and shame in the spaces where I was kind of having some internal struggle with trying to do what I know is best for me and yet still being tugged in the direction of saying yes when I really wanted to say no. And that internal battle was also taking energy and contributing to my fatigue and my irritability and, some questions of, why am I still in this space? Why is this still such a struggle? I teach this. I just did a podcast episode on this. I should be better at this by now. All of that self-judgment was coming up for me, and I had to take a moment and pause and be gentle and have some compassion. And honestly, by the time the weekend rolled around last weekend, I had to say no. I had planned to have some downtime, and then something came up and I felt that tug again. I felt the urge to say yes and to please. And ultimately, I was able to say no, and then the gift of snow also arrived, which made it even easier for me to say no because the weather was bad and the roads were bad and everyone was kind of staying home. And so I had that, but I had already said no to this invitation, and I felt a lot of relief because I knew I needed a break. I knew that I needed some downtime with nothing on my calendar, with no chores to do at home. And I knew that if I did not take that break, that I was going to have a repeat of the week before where I ended up in tears and really upset over something that was pretty minor. And it stemmed from all of those things just piling up, quite honestly, and a lot of energy going out and not much coming in. So when we shame ourselves, it increases our nervous system dysregulation. It delays the time that it takes to repair, and it keeps us stuck in our familiar patterns. And often for highly sensitive people, we have a lot of deep insight before we have consistent capacity. It can take us a little bit longer sometimes than, the other 80% of the population to expand our capacity, and that's okay. It does not mean that you are failing. It just means that you are learning in real time. And so I just want to take a moment and let that sink in, that you are not failing if it takes you a little bit longer to make the change that you would like to make. It just means that you are learning in real time. So if you find yourself in a situation where you've overextended yourself, or you are people-pleasing, or you are not setting boundaries, whatever the case may be, where you are finding that you are reverting back to some patterns that you are trying to change, I encourage you to come with no judgment. It is simply part of the process. And a question that you can ask in that moment: what would help me come back into alignment right now? Instead of what so often we do is, whether it's exactly these words or more of a subconscious thing, but how do I fix this perfectly? And I see this coming up in myself, and I also see it coming up in my clients, where we decide that we're going to make a change and we're going to have this new way of being, and then we put all of these parameters and all these expectations on ourselves to do it perfectly, and it is unsustainable. And then when we don't, we find ourselves back in that same pattern, and it prevents us from coming back into alignment in that moment. So the goal is to just choose the next right step, setting one boundary, canceling one plan, having one honest conversation, one afternoon of nothing, which is what my Saturday looked like last week. I watched movies, I took a 2-hour nap, I put together some Legos, and I did nothing. The point of it is that we are returning to the path. That is what really matters. It is not about staying perfectly on the path. It is just returning to the path and creating that new, very well-worn groove in the direction that you want to be going. So to live this out in real time and to be completely authentic and vulnerable with all of you who are listening, I recognize that I have been overextending myself and I need to take a break. I need to rest. I need to reintegrate and get back in alignment. And I just want to model what that looks like for you. So because of that, I will be taking next week, the week of Christmas, off. And I will be returning in the new year with new episodes. And I just want to give you permission to pause too. And as you take a moment to pause and you reflect on the words in this episode and you are feeling seen or relieved, and you know that you have tried so many things, you've read all of the books, you've watched all of the reels, and you still struggle to implement change and believe that you are capable of making lasting change, I invite you to take advantage of the 4 free sessions to 7 new clients, because this isn't about doing it right. It's about having support while you practice. If you are interested, you can send me a message. The link is in the show notes. I look forward to having a conversation with you in the new year. Until next time, take care and have a wonderful holiday season, whatever that may look like for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.